Hey everybody, Mr. O'Donnell here. Uh, Welcome to this new crazy world that we're living in. We don't know necessarily how long this is going to last, and you've probably got information already from Principal Stewart and other teachers. And so, wanted to be able to talk to you guys a little bit about what we're going to be doing here in our uh, video production class. You can imagine one of the biggest struggles that we're going to have is we don't have the equipment to be able to be doing the creating and making of videos. I don't have a guarantee that every student is going to necessarily be able to have a computer or be able to have a smartphone where they're going to be able to do some stuff. So we're going to start for a while of only moving away from making of stuff to looking about um, consuming. So moving away from creating to consuming, and basically, like, how can we learn a little bit about sort of the stories that we watch out there? And more than anything, right now, I recommend spending some time. I'm watching some things. I think a lot of us are out there, and we often feel maybe a little bit bored at times. Like, boy, there's nothing really to watch. There's nothing really to do, and I know we're all being asked to be able to stay in. So, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to why not watch some stuff. So, we're going to be talking about different movie genres, depending on how long this situation is going to last for. As you can see right here, the first movie genre that we're going to jump into is one of the ones that I'm a really big fan of, and that is science fiction. Science fiction is a genre that uh, is extremely popular now and has been around for quite some time. Although a lot of people really sort of think that it's relatively a newer phenomenon. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through a little about the genre of science fiction, and then I'm also going to give you your the assignment that I'm going to be asking for you to be able to be doing and work on. So, science fiction. What is science fiction? First off, science fiction is the idea of um, a speculative future. Let me jump back a little too soon here. So, to speculate or to guess what is going to happen into the future, based on what new sort of science and technological changes are going to happen. So, it is not necessarily a fantastic world of someplace else or a different world all per se. It can take place in space, but it basically is the idea of what is in our future if we can continuing going down the road of improved new science and technology, what new things are created, but then more importantly, what is going to happen based on all of these technological changes. So, of almost all the movies that you're going to see, and a big part of this is I'm going to ask you guys to try to be able to go out and watch a science fiction movie, is thinking about there's some components that make up usually all of them. So there's basically, if you watch a sci-fi movie or even a book per se, or even a comic book actually, there's a couple different things which could take place. So we're going to break this down to sort of three components that usually science fiction is going to have one of these. So take for example this first one, and that one is here. When a writer or the creator of the story takes a known scientific fact and then imagines what might happen if certain events or circumstances take place. Basically, we're going to take something that we already know and then just push it a little bit further and see what happens. This is a very, very common theme in science fiction movies. So take for example here, I'm going to do a guilty pleasure of mine from when I was a kid and taking this idea. So for the idea of a known scientific fact right here. So this is something that happens. Great. What happens if we go a little bit further? So here's a known scientific fact. Mutations. We know genes can modify and mutate, and actually that radiation can cause some DNA mutations. And so here's something from, a known scientific fact about, hey, based on how much radiation you get, that it could lead to some genetic mutation. Now, what science fiction would say, if you go back to here, if we take this known scientific fact of um, radiation can make some genetic mutations, what can happen if we go a little bit further? So here's a guilty pleasure of mine. What would happen? Let's pretend in the 1970s, you're alive back then. What would happen if a barrel of radioactive waste landed on a beach one day? It fell off a boat, and then a bunch of ants started scurrying around and eating this radioactive waste. And then what do you think could possibly happen? Well, I'll tell you what could possibly happen. Science fiction says let's go a little bit further, in this particular case, a lot further, to create a really, really terrible movie. But we're going to talk a little later about how sometimes terrible movies, some movies actually want to be terrible, and it's often referred to as B movies. This is a great example of a B movie. One of my favorite growing up, movie called Empire of the Ants. Here is Here's a little trailer on it. This movie, for one of the ones for me as a kid, would often we didn't have as many movie choices, and this was one that would often come up, and I remember watching this as a kid and just being a little bit terrified and engaged by this. So here it is. Oh no. And then all of a sudden they grow to these ridiculously made giant ants that terrorize this island and the humans that come there. Check it out if you want to be able to see it. It's a really terrible movie, but it's a great example of what we talked about there, which is the taking a known scientific fact and going too far. All right, next possible component that you see in sci-fi is the idea of we're going to be able to set something. The place of this is in the future. Now, sometimes it could be the immediate future, the extended past, even a different universe. It could be in it could be in Earth, but um, if we had split into a different sort of time, different continuum or something along that one, but basically a different sort of place. So, take for example here. Here's another old time movie, which I think is a classic example of set in a different place. This movie basically tells the story of this. I'll tell this one here. Here are some astronauts who go onto a mission. There's three of them, and as they head off into a mission, they're put to sleep during the mission. Well, something happens, and they come out of their suspended animation, and they and their ship is about to crash on this planet. It lands in the water, and then uh, they make their way to land, and after a while they realize they're not the only people that are on this island, that there's others who are there, and sooner or later they realize, who the others who are there? It's apes. And this is the fantastic story, which was done many times, called The Planet of the Apes. So the idea of the story is that the humans go someplace else to a magnificent, wild, crazy world, which is inhabited by apes. And then the weird part is that the we have flipped roles. Instead of us putting the apes of ours in zoos and such, it's the opposite. Humans are treated much along those same lines, and so it's a really sort of interesting class shift. But it's the idea, like the component said, of the a different magical place. Now, here's a spoiler alert: cover your ears if you don't want to watch the original Planet of the Apes. The main character ultimately is going to break free. Some of the other apes realize that, oh my gosh, they're not. These people aren't savage. These humans aren't so awful, and they help him get free. And so he's able to break free with some other humans. And then at the end, he realizes this. Dun dun dun. Here's the big plot twist at the end. Do you see what it is in this animated GIF? He realizes in the final scene, he sees the Statue of Liberty, and he realized he didn't go to a different world. He never left Earth. He just went to the future, and the future, the Planet of the Apes, is Earth. Anyway, pretty interesting. So that's part two of this. Part three is what would happen if a plot is created that is radically different than something that you could ever anticipate here in any story that takes place now. Can there be some new science and technology that's put at that's there that changes creates a plot device that would never happen. And so, take for example this one, and I really recommend this. It is on Netflix, and the movie is called Moon, and it's really interesting because here is a set in the future, and we have a mining operation on the moon, and here is there's only one person who's living at this one mining area, and his job is to go out, and he has this robot who helps him and he can talk with, and he just works on the moon all day. Well, he starts to get he gets in an accident in his little rover, and he's kind of hurt, and he realizes he lays down for a little bit, and all of a sudden something's going to happen, which is somebody else shows up there, and it's another person that looks just like him, who calls himself the same name. I'm not giving a lot of it away, but this is a little bit of a plot twist in the beginning. He realizes is that his clone has shown up to replace him. So although he has thought that he has been on this mining thing for working on his own, he doesn't. It took him a while. This accident to realize is that no, he works there his entire life. As soon as he dies, then another one of his clones is brought up. So the idea about what would happen if you're just if yourself is cloned many, many times and you're just used for labor. And it's a really interesting plot device, which, like we said back here, is a plot that can never happen today, is encountering your own clone and you being used as a human labor, basically machine kind of a thing. That, like I said, that movie is on it is rated R, but it's on Netflix. And if you're looking for some things to watch, I highly recommend that. It's a great example of science fiction. Okay, last thing I want to be able to talk to you guys about is I'm going to jump out of here and I'll talk to you about the assignment, which I'm going to be want you all working on here. And so there's no due dates on these things like normally like we do, and points and all that sort of stuff is what we're going to talk later. But I'm just giving some assignments for those of you who have some time and the ability to be able to work on some things. And if you're interested, totally understand. But if you have some issues that means you can't do this, I also completely understand that as well. So, like we say, we're taking this day by day, week by week in terms of the situation that we're at. So I've assigned this to you in Schoology, and I got a couple things for us to do, broke them up into parts. So here's part one about what science fiction is. There's those three plot devices that we talked about, right? Sort of those components of science fiction. There's also some subgenres, like usually what are some sort of subgenres. You often will see aliens or dark futures or time travel and all that sort of stuff. First question on this one is, what's your favorite science fiction movie? Right? If you don't have any, tell me why. Why do you think this? Why does this genre not really appeal to you? And if there is, and if you do have a movie that you love to watch, so why don't you put that down there and say, uh, why you're crazy about the thing, which movie. Second one is number two. I want you to watch his YouTube video, and I have a couple questions for you. This guy kind of does a deep dive, sort of like a college professor, sort of look at what science fiction is all about. So answer me these questions about who were the fathers of science fiction, talk about this term self-preventing prophecy, and then what do you think the difference between science fiction and also the fantasy genre is? And you answer those right there. And then the last piece, more than anything else, this is the big thing, is that I want you to watch a movie, right? Watch a science fiction movie, like I said, Moon. Great one. So what I want you to be able to do is replace what I have here, put your name instead of this. The genre is sci-fi. Put the name of the movie, and of those subgenres that I talked about, remember here, like up here, these number six, whatever movie that you're going to watch, tell me which of those subgenres you think that this is your movie really sort of is all about. Then copy and paste some of these things. Give it out of 4 stars. How many you think? I got full ones or empty ones or half ones. So you put the name of your movie in there. Let's say I would change that and put the movie Moon in there. If you want to give it 4 stars, delete those and just put 4 full ones or whatever. Then take a screenshot of the movie. You can find them on the internet, or you can screenshot yourself. Take a picture of yourself actually watching the movie. So this is a wonderful movie. I can't recommend it. I have not found it on any of the streaming services. The movie is called Arrival. It's fantastic. It is a PG 13 movie, and it's a great example about what would happen if aliens landed in the United States. I haven't found it on any of the streaming services, but if you want to rent that one, it's a really great one to watch. So there's a screenshot of the movie. Here's a picture of me watching the movie. You can see, and then the last thing is looking at some of this, but I'm not really a big deal on that one. Just tell me a little bit about what you thought about the movie. I don't need to make it super, in depth and all that sort of stuff. Tell me what you thought about the movie. You can use some of these things. What was the plot about? Some examples, and the big thing, your opinion, whether you liked it or not. So, when you were done with all this thing, you like normally you hit the submit button and turn the thing in. Um, feel free to reach out to me if you guys got questions about this or anything else. Everything else, all correctives and things that we've had to do in the past, everything for me is going to be put on pause because we don't have access to our computers and the software. So I'm just going to put, like I said, a pause on all the stuff and turn those missing assignments. I'll get rid of those missing ones. I won't give you credit, but I won't be dinging you for any of those past missing assignments. And we're just going to be going down this for the foreseeable future until things change. Anyway, like I said, if you have any questions and you have some concerns about some further things, or you just want to be able to chat about the assignments or whatever you feel like it, feel free to reach out to me via email, or you can shoot me some messages on Schoology. So everybody, thanks a lot. Take care of yourselves. Try to stay inside or I mean, not necessarily just inside, but stay that quarantine that they're putting us all in. But also, try not to make yourself go too crazy. So anyway, take care, everybody, and thinking of y'all.